The year started so well with Joe Biden and China's President Xi Jinping coming together to talk tough on their combined climate action. But as you say, since then, geopolitical rivalries have got in the way, and any collaboration on climate has now fallen by the wayside. China has overnight put more flesh on the bones of how it intends to go carbon neutral by 2060. But remember, the current global energy crisis means it's digging even deeper for coal. And while it will finally submit its formal climate plan to the UN this week, the fear is it will not be enough. As for President Joe Biden, no one doubts his commitment to climate change. But as we speak, he's still desperately trying to get his own party to agree on a framework for his legislation. The hope is he arrives in Glasgow with a deal in hand. But right now, even that is looking optimistic. China and the United States, the two biggest emitters of greenhouse gases in the world. The actions and agreement of these two countries will go a long way to determining the future of the planet. But a week before the world descends on Glasgow, can we expect white smoke or simply more dark fumes?
This is code red. The nation and the world are in peril.
Well, Mr. President, thank you very much.
Earlier this year, President Biden and China's Xi Jinping came together to unite on climate change. But since then, the rhetoric has soured. And when Biden's climate envoy travelled to China last month to extract more green promises, he came back empty-handed. Any hope of collaboration, never mind a deal, seemingly evaporated. Just like the fumes here in Corpus Christi in Texas. Joe Biden insists the US fossil fuel industry must go green if America is to meet its pledge to cut emissions in half by the end of the decade. But there's strong resistance to his plans domestically. For all the talk of going green in Congress, there's no sense of that here. This is Refinery Row, a 10-mile stretch on the Gulf Coast of Texas that epitomizes America's addiction to fossil fuels. Oil and gas refineries and petrochemical plants as far as the eye can see. This side of the bay is full to capacity, but rather than stop here, they're simply expanding across the water.
Texas is not going to do anything to move towards Biden's clean energy plan, okay? It's not going to do it.
Errol Summerlin is the founder of a coalition of Texans trying to stop the ongoing expansion of oil and gas here.
They're ignoring climate change, and they're giving us this false prophet that we're not ignoring it. We're going to create hydrogen. We're going to do carbon capture, even though each one of those requires higher and more use of natural gas.
And there's plenty of that. So much so, the US sends lots of it to China, to cities like Shanghai that need the gas to supplement coal. China has pledged to stop building coal plants abroad, but domestically it still relies on the fuel for nearly 60% of its energy.
我们并不说谁更困难，但是都难度很大，都是要通过发展可再生能源或者非化石能源来解决我们的排放问题。
There are some rays of hope, though, like these massive solar farms, a rare, clear sign that efforts are underway. And China already has 5 million electric cars on the road, more evidence it can act. But having overtaken the US as the world's biggest emitter, it has the most work to do. Yet China's pledge to go carbon neutral by 2060 is a decade later than most. Perhaps for that reason, in other parts of China, the strategy isn't to wait, but to adapt to life in a more volatile world.
It is an example of working with nature as opposed to against nature.
That's the rationale for these innovative sponge cities, which are starting to pop up amid the urban sprawl of some of China's most flood-prone districts. The idea is to prevent floods by soaking up rainwater and recycling it for irrigation and domestic use.
Sponge cities are necessary because over 65% of Chinese cities are suffering urban flood.
He says China and the world needs to act faster.
We have to be more aggressive in this direction. We have to change the track in order to reach the carbon neutral point, 2060.
He's right. With the Global Climate Summit 1 week away, China is yet to submit its formal carbon reduction plan, and President Xi Jinping isn't even expected to turn up to Glasgow in person. With China absent and Biden still struggling to pass his legislation, is there any chance COP can succeed?
We are starting to see good domestic progress in the United States because of the pressure of the climate movement, and even in China as air pollution becomes such a big issue domestically. So I do think that we're starting to move in the right direction. The issue is with climate change, you have to move fast enough, and nowhere in the world are countries moving fast enough to take on the climate crisis.
The truth is, as long as China and the US remain so hooked on fossil fuels and so seemingly unable to work together, the more the world will continue to experience the devastating consequences.
This expansion here is, if we can't control it, then there is no hope.
Between them, these two global giants have the chance to commit to changes that will bring down global emissions once and for all. But will they take it?